Good afternoon, everyone. And for those who are watching from different time zones, good morning and good evening. My name is Marilyn. I'm the founder and CEO of Customized Training Solutions Private Limited, or CTS. And we are passionate about helping leaders and organizations who are continuous learners and action takers to transform and thrive in all aspects by co-creating customized program with our world-class resources. We have served over 3,000 leaders from 30 countries in different industries, including Petronas, Sony, ProLife UK, Ayala Group, Chevron, Tencent, Jollibee Foods Corporation, and Shell, to name a few. Experts say that the pandemic will last for the next 3 to 5 years. This is why we are organizing several interventions, including this interview, to help leaders who don't know how to stay relevant and adapt to the new normal, those who find it stressful to lead and ensure performance of a remote team, and those that are afraid that you can't keep your team or business. So, to be able to stay relevant and continue to lead effectively in any situation, do follow us, watch our videos, and learn from experts, trainers, and leaders from around the globe. And today, I'm so excited because, and it's my great pleasure to introduce our leader, Harvey Ong. I actually asked him if he's an actor because I've been seeing a lot of people following him. So, Harvey Ong has over 29 years of leadership experience with industry leading companies, currently serving as a chief operating officer of Alfamart Trading Philippines. It's a joint venture between Alfamart from Indonesia and SM Retail, of course, from the Philippines. And Alfamart opened its first store in the Philippines in June 2014 with over 1,000 outlets today and annual revenues of US dollars 350 million. It is the fastest growing retail chain in the Philippines. Since 2018, he has also been a guest lecturer at the Ateneo de Manila Graduate School Center for Continuing Education for their retail management and strategy programs, as well as resource speaker for iLeap Consulting. And prior to that, he worked with companies like Jollibee Foods Corporation, Fonterra, Procter and Gamble, to name a few. And he considers himself a lifelong learner and enjoys networking with people who have the same passion for learning. And no wonder I've invited him and we've been connected for the last 5 years. So, hi, Harvey.
Hey Marilyn, it's finally it's great to finally meet you after all these years. And before anything else, thank you for inviting me to your program.
It's my pleasure to have you here. And so, let's jump in so that they can get so much value from you.
All right.
Yeah, so the first three questions, in fact, are more towards, understanding your perspective, where you're coming from, um, and like share with us so that we will know, like, okay, that's the reason why he's answering that that way. Yeah. So, and then the 4 to 6 question will be the meaty part. I would say
All right.
that's
All
we're
right.
going to learn so much from you. And then the 7 to 8 question will be my Miss Universe questions for you.
Okay.
So yeah, to start with, please feel free to share with us like your leadership experiences and probably your influencers, and if you have like a favorite leadership style based on your experience, please do let us know.
All right. All right. Sige, I'll start with that. Actually, I've been blessed in my life. I've had so many role models. I had so
Mhm.
many mentors who've influenced how I live my life and how I became a leader. No, I have to start, I guess, with my parents. I think they were my first influencer, so to speak.
True.
My father is one of the most hardworking, humble person I've met, and my mom was really hard on me when I was growing up. No, she really made sure that my grades were good and that I never went to bed without finishing my homework. No? So the three things I got from my parents, the importance of having a strong work ethic. Number
Mhm.
two, always staying hungry, not being contented with what you have. And number
Mhm.
three, the importance of humility, right? And aside from my parents growing up, I think I had so many great bosses and I'm not going to name all of them because some of them might feel bad if I leave out some names. But if there's one person I would say who's had the greatest influence on me in my professional
Mhm.
career, his name is Mr. Johnny Kua, and he was
Oh.
the first Filipino president of Procter and Gamble in the Philippines in back in 1995. So it's
Mhm.
a great pleasure for me to work with him, and I've learned so much from him. The importance of strategic discipline, and importantly, looking after your people. So
Mhm.
I'm always thankful for that experience. And I guess last but not the least, I try to, when I have the time, read the books about other leaders,
Mhm.
and I think two leaders in particular really influenced me. I think one of them is the late Lee Kuan Yew, the
Mhm.
Prime Minister of Singapore, where you're currently based, right?
Yeah.
And it's amazing how he was able to transform Singapore, and how in just one generation they went from a struggling third world country to a
Mhm.
first world country. Amazing vision, amazing drive. And the other one was, Nelson Mandela, the late Nelson Mandela. And it's an amazing story of how he refused to give up because his cause was so great. And despite so many years in prison, he
Mhm.
continued to fight on because he felt, what he was fighting for was more important than his life. So I think, a mix of my parents, a mix of Mr. John Kua, a mix of, what I read about world leaders, this has shaped who I am, I guess.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. And I love to hear that, you made mention about the influence of your uh, parents, because I mean that, that lets our audience know that, it's important that you're really making all, or doing all your best to be a great role model for your children, right? I mean,
Right,
as a leader of the family, you have to, be able to teach that value to your children. I would
that's
say
correct.
I
That's
also
right.
a mom, and I have small children right now, and I feel that this is important, and I love the ones that you've shared, which I'm flashing in the screen as well now, that the importance of good work ethics, having humility, and taking good care of employees, which doesn't surprise me that the leaders that you named just now, Lee Kuan Yew, Nelson Mandela, and John Ip Koo, are all encompassing, all sharing or showing this to their team, right?
Right.
So having said that, I that brings me to my next question: what is leadership for you?
Right. That's a very, I could go on and on and on. But my ex-boss told me when you answer something, the maximum you should say is three things. So I'll limit it to three things. Uh, I
Okay.
think I think leadership is having clarity on the purpose and the vision of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Purpose, because you need to know why the organization exists. What is your greater purpose beyond just making profit,
Mm-hmm.
and of what service does your team have to the society, right? So that's purpose. Vision
Mm-hmm.
is where you want to take your team to, right? A leader who doesn't have a vision of a
Mm-hmm.
greater vision for his team is not a good leader in my book. Like, take a look at Lee Kuan Yew. He
Mm-hmm.
envisioned Singapore as a first world country, and
Yes.
look at Nelson Mandela, who had a vision of South Africa, where the black people and the white people can live side by side, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's purpose and vision. I think that's number one. Second is, I think a good leader uh, makes the people around him better, right? If not, you're a selfish person, and the selfish people don't make for a good leader. So a leader is there to make everyone around him better.
Mm-hmm.
And third of all, I think a good leader has the capability to build a culture
Mm-hmm.
that will sustain long after he's left, right?
Mm-hmm.
A culture of curiosity, a learning culture where people strive to do their best and they strive to keep improving continuously. So those three things. So it's driving purpose and vision, it's driving growth and development, and it's about driving the culture.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And really spot on there. I mean, these are like um, most companies that are really growing so fast that, really take note of, I would say, right? The purpose and vision, and then, like you said, developing capabilities of your people and creating that culture
Right.
that inspires people. And thank you for sharing that with me. And so for those leaders who are listening to us, take note of those 3 points, to ensure that your company grows as much as you and your team grew Alfamart as well, right? So nowadays, I mean, like a lot of people or leaders do, and even organizations, struggled with like so much changes. And the changes, when we say changes, is really fast. And so, like, people would describe or call it as a new normal or next normal. So, but for you, how would you actually define and describe the next normal?
Right. That's an interesting question. First of all, I have no idea what's going to happen next. There's no playbook, right, on this
Mhm.
pandemic, and I'm sure, there's no clear crystal ball about what happens next. But what I do know is the pace of change. I'm not young anymore. I'm 50 years old, and I've never in my lifetime been part of so much change. The pace of change because of technology, it's just
Mhm.
so fast. I read somewhere that the innovations that took place in the last 10 years
Mhm.
is greater than the pace of innovation of the previous 100 years.
Mhm.
Right. And so, what I do know is that after this pandemic, in the new normal or better normal or whatever you call it, I
Mhm.
think I think the fast pace of change will will accelerate, right?
Mhm.
It will
Mhm.
further accelerate, right? Because of all of the advancements in technology that
Mhm.
has continued to happen even
Mhm.
during the pandemic. So I think change is imminent, right? Right. More disruption, right? So if you want a steady life and all that, good luck. We're not going to see that, right?
Mhm.
Things will change. I think in the new normal, people will have a better appreciation for health. I
Mhm.
think it's something that we took for granted, and we saw in the pandemic how important it was. So I
Mhm.
think people will be more focused on the importance of health. And in
Mhm.
particular, I'm glad to see people having more focus on mental health, because
Mhm.
during the pandemic, people were really bombarded with so much stress, anxiety, uncertainty. A lot of people experience depression. So I enjoy reading. No, my favorite is LinkedIn. That's where we met, and I
Mhm.
enjoy a lot the discussions about mental health, because finally
Mhm.
right now it's in the focus. But it's been there
Mhm.
for years. No, aside from that, I think what's here to stay will be, the virtual social and entertainment interactions,
Mhm.
even virtual work. I
Mhm.
think people will start meeting up like they used to before, but not at the same level of frequency. So
Right.
if you can avoid physical big group interaction,
Mhm.
I think they'll continue to do that. So I think, industries related to training, right? In the old days, all the training was face to face. Now
Mhm.
I think they will continue to do training using this platform, because
Virtual.
it's as effective, and
Mhm.
in fact maybe even more effective, because people are more focused on the speaker instead of the person beside them, right? There's less distractions, right? So I think there'll be a lot of changes in some of the industries. But if I were to bet on one thing, I would also say that in the new normal,
Mhm.
people will value life more, right?
Yes.
And I think that this COVID will give a lot of people wisdom and perspective about life, about what's really important, right? Like, we before the pandemic, we kill ourselves for material advancement. And now
Mhm.
during the pandemic, we realize all we need is a safe home surrounded by the people we love, maybe
True.
Netflix, maybe enough money for the groceries. Who cares about the fancy cars you can't use because you can't travel? Who cares about the fancy clothes you won't wear because there's no social
True.
function? But
Mhm.
the company of the people you love and having more time with them, right? So I think that's what we will also bring. I hope we will bring in the new normal.
Yes. I felt like you have a magic ball in front of you while, describing the next normal, in fact. Yeah. But, we've been seeing a lot of this, what you've made mention earlier in terms of, consciousness, in terms of the health, of course, the technological innovation, which has been, of course, here even before the COVID-19. But most people or organizations like, okay, we don't have a choice but to adapt and to make use of this, because otherwise how can we stay connected with our team, with our loved ones, right? And of course, the collaboration, which what actually CTS is doing ever since we started. We really leverage a lot on collaborating with experts globally. So I that's why I said, like, I thought you have your magic ball in front of you. And before we continue, I'd actually like to say hi to Reginald De Vera. Thank you for engaging with us. So don't worry, you haven't missed anything. But you can, of course, rewatch the replay. But then, yeah, just continue to watch with or engage with us now. This is still live. Don't worry. So, and that moves me to the next question. From your experience as a corporate leader and also working with corporate leaders now, what would you say would be the top three problems that leaders would normally face?
Good question. Uh, I think related to my last answer about the
Mm-hmm.
fast pace of innovation, I
Mm-hmm.
think agility is going to be very, very important. The ability to decide quickly, right? To adjust your strategies, right? And to be agile, you need to be a continuous learner to
Mm-hmm.
keep up with the trends. But at the same time, part of agility, I think, is having the courage to make mistakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
the opposite of being agile is being rigid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being so sigurista or being so sure because you don't want to make
Right.
a mistake. But
Mm-hmm.
to be agile, sometimes you need to take a leap into the unknown, right?
Mm-hmm.
And go with your hunch, with your gut
Mm-hmm.
feel. And sometimes you need to have the courage to say, okay, if I stay still, I'm going to fail. If I try something new, I may fail, but I may also succeed, right? So at
Mm-hmm.
least that gives you a better chance of success. So I think number one is the need to be agile. Number
Mm-hmm.
two, I think, and this may not be, I will be unpopular to your Filipino listeners, right? But if there's one thing uh, I I hate about the Filipino work culture is when I hear people say "puede na." Puede na is the Tagalog equivalent of this is fine, this is enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's compromising on standards, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's one thing that I feel I like people to set higher standards.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be contented with how things are being done today. Let's
Mm-hmm.
find a better way to do that tomorrow. And I think Marilyn, that's a difference. Filipinos, we are proud of having a survivor's mentality, right?
Yes.
We are survivors, correct?
Mm-hmm.
But
Very
Marilyn,
resilient as well, if I may add.
right? Correct, right? We are survivors, we are resilient, but a survivor and a winner are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
A survivor finishes the race. A winner gets the medal in the race, right? So I think we should not be contented with being survivors. We
Mm-hmm.
need to develop a winner's mentality. And I hope the next generation of Filipinos will
Mm-hmm.
improve on our generation. They have to have that winner's edge, right? And
Right.
third, since I already mentioned the word generation, I think one of the problems here is the intergenerational diversity at work,
Mhm,
where you
mhm,
have some baby boomers and Gen X mostly at the top, and underneath us would
mhm,
be mostly millennials and Gen Z. These are
mhm,
different generations with different, perspectives in life. So
mhm,
I think the challenge here is how do we get the most out of the millennials and the Gen Zs, right? We know that our style won't work with them, but they are the future, right? So we need to adjust to them in the same way that they need to adjust to us. It has to be two ways.
Right. I love about your share, and you really like, summarize like the most complicated problems that most organization would have. But if I were to probably summarize this in one word, is people.
Yes, yes,
Right?
yes,
It's all about people, working with people, setting that expectation, and at the same time, of course, having that mindset, to be able to work harmoniously together. And probably part of what you will be sharing later on this next question of what are the important leadership capabilities or skills you must
right,
have in next normal to continue to lead effectively, having to share like the problems already that you've raised earlier.
right. I think in the in the new normal, and this
Mhm,
is related to my previous point about
mhm,
the workforce
mhm,
becoming predominantly, millennials at the middle manager and supervisory level, and then
mhm,
at the rank and file entry level will be the Gen Zs, right? So we are now in the minority, right?
mhm.
Leaders need to be humble.
Yes.
By that, let me elaborate. When we started working, we were taught to be humble enough to learn from the seniors, from the elders, correct?
Mhm.
But
Yes.
nowadays, now that we are old, we need to be humble enough to learn from the young ones, because the pace of change is so fast, right?
Mhm,
That
mhm.
there are so many things that they know that we don't, especially when it comes to technology, right?
True. Yeah.
And that's why millennials and Gen Zs don't like it when we tell them how to do things,
Right.
because they know they can do it maybe faster, simpler, or better than us, right? And so we need to change our language, right? So I guess, to go back to your question, I think the biggest leadership skill we need to develop is
Mhm,
how to engage the
mhm.
workforce. By engage, it means how do we get their commitment? Not just follow. Follow is easy. It's just
Yeah.
about penalties and rewards, right?
Mhm,
By
mhm,
engage, it means they are so committed, they will go the extra mile. And I
mhm,
think to get the that level of engagement, I think
mhm,
we need to better understand what makes the Gen Zs and the millennials different
mhm,
from us. And I
mhm.
can summarize that with one word. And I think purpose is more important to this
Oh.
generation than it
Mhm.
ever was in our generation. When I say ours, I mean not you and me, because you're surely much younger than me. But
Thank you.
but I think the younger generation. Let me just group it together. I think the younger generation, purpose matters more to them than it ever did to the older generations, your
Mhm,
generation and mine included.
mhm,
And so, therefore, what they are looking for is leaders who will make them feel what I'd say purposeful. I listened to a TED talk on this one and I was blown
mhm,
away.
mhm,
Purposeful means being able to apply your best self, your
mhm,
strengths, your passion
mhm.
on the things that matter most to you,
Most of you.
right?
Yeah.
So it's about helping the young ones find their strengths,
Mhm,
discover their passion, and
mhm,
applying it to meaningful work, right?
mhm,
So that at the end of the day, they go home feeling fulfilled because what they did was important, right? And they played a big part in
mhm.
achieving
Right.
that important goal, right? So, and aside from that, aside from being invested in their growth and development,
Mhm,
uh, it's also about the ability to communicate, right?
mhm,
I think a leader. I keep telling this to my people. If you want to be a good leader, you need two things, right? When it comes to people, one is
mhm.
the ability to communicate, right? That's the first C, and the second C is the capacity to care, right?
Yes.
You can talk. That's communicate. But if that is about, you know, serving my interest, there's no
Mhm,
care in that. You won't go
mhm,
any places. On the other hand, you may have the capacity to care for people, But
Mm-hmm.
unless you're able to communicate that to them, that is
Mm-hmm.
also useless. So you need to communicate, you need to care more. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that is the secret uh, to managing the young ones.
Yes, I love that you've highlighted how important, helping your people to live their purpose or to live a purposeful life, right? Because I believe, like, the new generations, they would rather work for organizations who can actually help them live their purpose, make them grow, rather than those that who can pay them like higher, right? That's what I've been, hearing, seeing, and in all the articles that I've been reading, and even like my favorite also TED Talk. I've been listening to TED Talk as well. So like, yeah, it's really true that a lot of the younger generation are like, that's something that they've been doing right, I would say, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So, having said that, what do you believe is the role of? I mean, we've talked a lot about leadership earlier. You brought us to the next normal as well earlier, and so if we were to integrate all those stuff, I mean, so what will be the role of learning, leadership, and transformation in being able to continuously thrive in the next normal? I remembered you made mention that, like Filipinos are always like thinking of how can we survive, but rather than surviving, how can we actually shift that to thriving, right?
Correct.
Uh,
Correct.
yeah. So, what's your take on that?
Uh, that's a good question, as with all your questions. Uh, well,
Okay.
Marilyn, I started my career in marketing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Brand management. And we were taught this tool called the product life cycle, right? Every product, every brand that's introduced in a market follows this curve. You start off as introduction, where
Mm-hmm.
your objective is just to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And some brands don't make it, no? Some brands, by the end of the first year, they are recalled. It just didn't work, right? But some of them do survive and they enter the second stage called growth.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the sales pick up, a repurchase happens, you grow market share, right? But
Mm-hmm.
sooner or later, you enter level three, and that's called maturity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when, people, you're no longer novelty, laos ka
Mm-hmm.
na, right?
Oh,
And
right.
there are so many competitors doing the same thing. So suddenly, you stop growing.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty soon you enter level four, which is decline,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then from decline, you basically die. So the trick is, how do you stay in growth zone as long as you can, right? And the point there, and I'm using this analogy because it's similar to our careers,
Mm-hmm.
right? The moment a product becomes complacent, it begins to decline. It's
Mm-hmm.
the same thing with our career. The
Mm-hmm.
moment we become complacent, we stop growing, and eventually, because of so many things happening in the marketplace, right, a lot of the skills that we have right now will be obsolete in the
Mm-hmm.
future, right? We need to get new skills. According to LinkedIn, right, LinkedIn research, 50% of today's key skills were not even in existence 3 years ago,
Right.
right? That's how fast things move. And so my only point is, it's a choice for you. The moment you decide to be complacent,
Mm-hmm.
to become comfortable with what you know, that's the day you start declining until eventually you become obsolete, right?
Yes.
And so, my suggestion to everyone, the world will never stop changing. So, you better not stop learning. You need to be a lifelong learner. That's my only point.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that actually reminds me of a quote from Henry Ford on learning, that anyone who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80. Anyone who keeps learning stays young. And no
That's
wonder
right.
we both look young. So just ego, ego there. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And again, it really, like, highlights the importance of having that continuous learning. Like, even when I introduce you, I made mention that that's something you are passionate about, continuously learning, or you are a lifelong learning. And I believe for leaders to really succeed, it really has to be, you really have to be a continuous learner, and you have to also build the same learning culture within your organization, right? So um, I would like to ask you now. We move to the Miss Universe question. So, if you have a magic wand and you can use it, what will you do with it?
Right. I My answer here is similar to, recently somebody asked me this question:
Mm-hmm.
what is your biggest regret in life?
Mm-hmm.
Right? From a career standpoint, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I had a magic wand, I would of course do it differently, right? Do my career differently. And
Mm-hmm.
the answer I'll give now is one and the same. If
Mm-hmm.
I were to relive my career all over
Mm-hmm.
again using that magic wand, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would have been more daring. I Early in my life, in my career, I was
Mm-hmm.
so afraid to fail, right? And I was in marketing, so I'm a very studious person. So I would study everything that works, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when we made a commercial or new product, etc., I will study what worked in other markets, what worked in the Philippines. I tried to turn marketing into a predictable science, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think for the most part, most of the campaigns worked. It provided steady, predictable, solid growth,
Mm-hmm.
but 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 they were predictable. They were boring, right? So uh, if I look back, rather than just copying what works, I would have probably been more daring and create new things. Never mind if it doesn't work, but maybe it would work and the results would be far, far, far greater than what I can achieve just by simply doing the tried and tested approach, right? So that's what I would do if I had a magic wand. I go back in time. I would be more risk taking. I will fail more, but I think in failing more, I will end up learning more, and I would have had a more enjoyable, uh, more unforgettable career.
First and foremost, I was surprised that you said this, that you would go back in time and start your career anew. When I've seen your profile, it's too impressive to change anything. I from as the first thing that came into my mind. It's like, wow, this guy. He wanted to to fail and all those stuff, while he actually like made a lot of great things in his career. So it's like, it's interesting. I mean, that's definitely the mindset of a winner. I would say, right? Like, and that's good that you also like share that with us, because a lot of people, they're so afraid of failing, and they felt like failure is really something that you're not supposed to have, or experience, or such thing. But then, in fact, just to remind you again, like, I mean, Harvey have already shared that with you, but then just to remind everyone that it's okay to fail.
That's right. That's right.
Especially if you learn from it, right? So of course, we're not encouraging you to make mistakes and to fail, and just that. I mean, if you make mistakes, if you fail, you have to learn from that, and that makes it valuable, right? And that's the reason why Harvey here wants to go back in time and start his career anew, to make more failures, uh, to be even better than who he is now. Who's, I don't know who, who, if anyone would agree that it's crazy, right? Yeah. So yeah, and my last question then would be, if you were to ask yourself a question that you can best answer, what would it be?
Okay. I guess that question would be, what do you want to do next? What is your next chapter in your career? I guess that's a question that only I can
Mm-hmm.
answer. And
Mm-hmm.
I think there are less years in front of me, right,
Mm-hmm.
than behind me. I'm entering the fourth quarter, maybe the last 2 minutes of my corporate career. We're not getting any younger, and I think my next chapter. I'm hounded by this article I read a few months ago,
Mm-hmm.
and this is a long-winded response. So bear with me, Marilyn. In 2018, the Philippines participated for the first time in a global survey of 15-year-old students.
Mm-hmm.
600,000 students uh, joined this assessment from 79 countries.
Mm-hmm.
And they focus on three areas. First is reading comprehension. In the
Mm-hmm.
Philippines was number 79 out of 79.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
We've in the area of math, the Philippines was number 78 out of 79.
Mm-hmm.
And science was a bit better. The Philippines was 71 out of 79, right? What what is this study saying? It's saying that the education system of the Philippines is not keeping up with the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
The next generation who are in school right now, the moment they finish schooling, they will not be competitive compared to the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think the government cannot solve this alone. And I've always believed that true transformation, which is the point of your talk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Transformation can only happen if the private sector steps up, right? I think the job of private sector is not just to complain.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have two choices: either we're part of the problem or we are part of the solution. And I think we should
True.
choose to be part of the solution, right?
Exactly.
And so I think private sector needs, especially our learning and development teams,
Mm-hmm.
because we hire a lot of young graduates every year.
Mm-hmm.
We should be the university that they never had. I think
Yes.
we
Mm-hmm.
need to create, uh, a change in their mindset. Because
Mm-hmm.
if we don't do that, right? If we don't do that, then these people will never have the opportunity to get a better life that the previous generation did. So
Mm-hmm.
we need to do something about it, and that's something I want to do in the next chapter of my life. I want to spend more of my time helping the next generation, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully, if I do my job well, hopefully I can increase the odds of success for some of them. That's what I want to do in the next chapter of my life.
Wow, thank you for sharing that with us. And of course, you're right about that because sometimes some people would just always blame it to the government or to anyone, and without realizing they're all actually being part of the the problem, like what you've said. And so that's a great reminder for everyone to be a part of the solution and to take ownership as well of what's happening in your life. Right?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, these are just external factors. The most important thing is your mindset, the your response and your reactions, and what will you do next uh, in the future, right? And we're actually doing this to make a difference as well in others' life. I hope.
I
Yeah,
hope.
yeah, I hope we could only hope for that. I mean, we hope that we get to inspire people to listen to us and to learn from what we've shared from our experiences as well. So, and to encourage them to be, I guess, bold enough or more hopeful enough, right, to be able to shift from just striving to thriving, right? Because oh, I do meditate actually, and according to Chopra Center, abundance is our birthright. So that's why we have to be more bold, and we have to have that um, and just have like whatever we want in in our life to live our purpose, right? And I really appreciate all your share. It's very humbling to learn a lot from someone like you. And I will continue definitely to follow you to learn more from you on your strategies in LinkedIn.
Thank you.
And before we end, is there any message that you'd like to share to our audience?
Right, right. Well, I think a lot of your audience are calling in from the Philippines, where I'm currently based. Times right now, it's pretty hard, but I can see light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
And my generation will remember that we had a very tough 2 years in 1984 and 1985, and we thought it would be the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people started migrating abroad, and but things got better. So I
Mm-hmm.
believe in the resiliency of the people,
Mm-hmm.
and so just hang in there. Help is on the way. Vaccines are coming, but let's not forget the lessons that we've learned here in during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm proud to be part of the Philippine private sector, because during this pandemic, we really stepped up, and all
Mm-hmm.
these acts of generosity, and working together to help
Mm-hmm.
the society, to support the government. And I hope when things get better, we don't lose this momentum. I
Mm-hmm.
hope we don't forget this sense of social responsibility,
Yes.
and together let's help the local government to create a better future for
Mm-hmm.
the long-suffering Filipino people, because frankly, they deserve a better life than what they have right now. Even during the pandemic, even before the pandemic, there was nothing great. So let's
Mm-hmm.
not just go back to the old normal. Let's
Right.
create a better normal for the next generation of Filipinos, as one unified private sector.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Harvey. Well summarized and very inspiring, I would say. So I really appreciate you and thank you for this very inspiring and insightful conversation. And of course, I thank everyone who's watching or who's gonna watch our interview. And I would like to invite everyone to do join us in this journey to be able to fight the pandemic and be able to challenge to turn this challenge into opportunities or to be more instead of having a survival mode to thriving mode and to join us with this several interventions that we organize as well. And um, do invest in yourself. It's important to be a continuous learner. So with that, I would like to leave everyone with this quote from Dolly Parton, that if your actions create legacy that inspires others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are an excellent leader. Thank you so much, Harvey, and thank you,
Thank you, Myra.
everyone. So bye for now.